Okay, so today I am going to show you how to build and use a template for a lease listing. This can also be used if you're representing a tenant on a lease. There will just be some forms that you won't include, and you'll see those separated out as we go. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. And first, I'm just going to take us into Skyslope. So from here, there's a couple different things we're going to do. The first thing that I want to do is to show you how to get into working documents. Working documents is right here in the center of the screen at the bottom, in the second row of the icons that you have to select from. So we'll select working documents. And you're going to notice along the top, you'll see office inbox, personal docs, office docs, and rejected offers. We're going to go to office documents, and you will see a list along the side here, the left-hand side of, it'll have the company, and then it has several other folders. You'll notice these folders for each of the offices are empty. They're automatically created each time we open a new office. And so what we've done is consolidated all of the files based on the area, because they generally tend to be the same for the high desert and for the Coachella Valley. So if you're in the high desert, you'll select here. If you're in the Coachella Valley, you'll select this section. Today, the forms that we need to pull out of this list are the mold, the square footage, the LP, the DLP, Desert Lifestyle Properties mold addendum, the Desert Lifestyle Properties square footage addendum, and the lease breakdown form, which you won't use until the end, but I like to pull it into the file now so I don't have to worry about doing it later. So once, one of my suggestions is that you download all these files into your own personal file system, whether it's in the cloud or on your computer or wherever, just so that you have them accessible and ready to go anytime you need an additional form. But today, the simplest way that I have found to do it is just to go into each of these and download them and put them into a folder on your desktop so that you have them in order to create the template. So we're going to click on the first one, and it should bring up our mold. We're going to just download it, and I'm going to save it. I just created a folder on my desktop. You know what? It's not there. So let's go ahead and start a new one. So we're going to do one called Lease Template. And we're going to save that mold document there. And you can see it's already listed there. So we're going to click save. And then we're going to close out of this, go back to Skyslope, and we're going to pull the square footage document. We're going to just do the same thing here. Just click the download button up in the upper right-hand corner here, and you'll save it to that same folder. And the same is going to go for the LPI landlord breakdown form. And we don't need this one till the end, but I like to pull it in automatically so that it's there. So those three are saved. Oh, and you know what? There's one other that I want to bring in on this, and it's the local area disclosures. So I'm a member of the California Desert Association of Realtors. We also have the Palm Springs one in here, and in the high desert, that folder has the Yucca Valley local area disclosures. So I'm going to just click on this. I'm going to download it and save it to that folder. Okay, and so we're done with all of these documents. So now we're going to go back into Skyslope. I'm actually going to take you, we can just go back to the home screen here. And from here, you're going to go up to the top corner and you're going to see these 9 little dots in the word apps. If you click on that, you're going to see several options in the drop down. Now I want you to go to forms. And this is the forms section of Skyslope. The first thing that I want you to do, and you don't have to do this every time, this is a one-time deal, but if your information is not automatically being entered into the forms in Skyslope, we used to use the cover sheet, and Skyslope has instructed me that the way for you to get that info to carry over for your personal info is through this section. So you're going to click on your name in the upper right-hand corner. You're going to go to user profile, and you'll make sure that all of your information is entered in this section. For the brokerage phone, I just have my own phone number in there, but you put the office address, the office information, the brokerage license number. For those of you entering it now, our brokerage license number is not my license number, it's the corporate license number, which is 019-34679. And that's listed here. And our brokerage MLS code for the Palm Desert office is D24082. If you need it for yours, you're more than welcome to reach out to your office manager in your office to get it, or you can call me and I'll help you with it. If you're filling out this information now, go ahead and click pause, get it all filled out, and when you're done, unpause. And when you come back, we're going to click save. And all of your information, you can see from the top there, was saved. So we don't really need to do anything else here, but we're going to go back to the main section of forms that we were in. And we're going to look at the top here. And along the top, you've got two sections. You've got files and templates. So this is a list of all the files that I've created so far. But today I want us to go to templates because we're going to actually build the lease template that you're going to use to be able to apply to your files in the future. So you can see I have several in here. I have my buyer, my listing, my lease, and then this one is for independent contractor agreements. But we're gonna create this lease one today, and I've already got it created. So I'll just open it real quickly so you can see this is a list of all the forms that are here that will be in yours by the time we're completed. We're gonna go back though, and we're gonna click Create Template from here. And once we click create template, I'm going to select landlord because we're doing the lease checklist today. If you only wanted to do this representing a tenant, you can, but it's the same documentation. So I tend to use just one checklist for leases. And if I'm not representing the landlord, I just delete out the landlord documents. And then sometimes there's things that I don't need and I just remove those as well. So we'll click landlord here next. And then what should we name the template? I'm going to call it lease, and I'm going to call it lease 2 because I already have a lease in there, so I just need to name it slightly different. So we'll continue. And then from here, it's going to allow you to add in any forms that are available for download through the zip form library. And in this particular library, we have all the car forms. So we're going to go through real quick, and I'm going to give you the list that you're going to want to add into this list in order to have a complete list. So the first one is going to be your agency disclosure, and you want the AD1 that is for the listing agent, or that's regarding the listing. And this one you need first because if you're representing the seller, this is going to be signed along with that lease listing agreement. In the purchase agreement, it's automatically added. In the lease agreement, it's not because it's only required. The agency disclosures are only required. If you read the very top line, it says that it's only required. And as a matter of fact, I'll open it here. Only required if this is for a transaction for a leasehold interest exceeding 1 year. However, our brokerage and most other brokerages require this documentation even if it's less than a year. So we're going to go ahead and add that in. That's the first one that we're going to need. The next one that we're going to need is the LL and the lease listing. And the way that you can search up here is if you know the form name, you can type it in. I sometimes find it's a little easier to just go ahead and type the whole name of the form in, but we'll go ahead and add that lease listing. And you do that over here. If you click here, it'll open up the form so you can look at it. But if you click over to the right, it'll let you add or remove the form from there. And so I'm just going to continue searching for my forms until I have this completed. The next one that we want is the CMD. And so I'm going to add that. The next one that we want is the LPD, which is the lead paint disclosure, used to be the FLD. So if you see that in any of our checklists, know that those are the same and interchangeable. The next one is the LRM, lease rental mold. We'll click add. And the next one that we're going to need is the AD2. And that one is for the tenant. And I'll show you that in a little bit, but we're just going to go ahead and add that one in now. The next is the LR, which is our lease, residential lease and month-to-month rental agreement. We're going to click add. And then LRA, which is our rental application. Now you're going to need one of these for every person over 18 who applies for the property. So sometimes I like to add 2 in there so that I just have two available. But to be honest, you can just have 1 and print 2 copies of it. If you're handling the listing and you're going to be showing the property, it's a good idea to print several of these application to rent and bring them with you so that the tenants can fill them out right there on the property if they'd like to, especially if you've got a hot lease listing. The next one, so we've added 2 of the rental applications or the application to rent. The next form that we're going to add is the PHSA. And this form's not required for every transaction, but if there is a pool, hot tub, or spa, this is a great form to add in because it really gives the responsibility back to the tenant on how they're utilizing those pieces. It's a great one to add in. And the next one that we're going to do is the PET, formerly the PA. It used to be the PET addendum, and it is now the PET PET addendum. That is not needed for every transaction either, only when you have a pet. And then the MIMO, the move in, move out inspection form, we're going to go ahead and add that in as well. So hopefully you got all of that. If not, you can go ahead and pause, go back and watch it again and get all those forms added in. I'm also happy to send you a list if you need that. And so now we've got everything added in that we want. You can see it took 12 forms, and I feel like that might be one short, but that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11. 12. Nope, we're good. Okay, so we're going to continue. And now you can see all the car forms that have been added, but we still have a couple forms left. Remember those Better Homes and Gardens, the BHG DLP forms that we downloaded. So we're going to click here to upload documents. And this is going to allow, if you look down here in the corner, you've got the option, let's see, you've got the option to add forms or upload documents. So if I realized I wanted to add another rental application, I can go in here and add another form to it. But right now I want to upload those external documents. And so I'm going to click upload. I'm going to search to that file that I created on my desktop. That was called Lease template. And that has these forms inside it that I wanted to add. So I'm just going to highlight and select all of them, click open, and you can see it really easily uploads all those documents for me. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is go through the order that I like to have these in. For the most part, we have them in that order, but I do want to take a couple of the documents we ended up bringing in and move those around just slightly. So let me pull up my list so I can look at it real quick. Okay, so we have, okay, so the agency disclosure is correct, the lease listing is correct, CMD, LPD, LRM, and then we have our agency disclosure. Okay, so the next one we need to have is actually after the LRM, I want to bring the mold up. And the reason I put them in this order is because this is the order I need them in. I am going to have, when the agency disclosure and the lease listing agreement goes over to the landlord, I'm going to have them sign some of these other additional forms as well, so that the seller signatures on them, and that disclosure packet, just like you would for a listing, that disclosure packet is ready to go when the tenant comes along. So I'm going to move the mold up, the desert lifestyle properties, the DLP mold is going to get moved up. The square footage is going to get moved up right below that. And I don't know if you can see this, but I'm just clicking on the little lines and I'm able to move these icons up and down so that they're in the order that I want them in. The next is going to be the local area disclosure, and that's going to go after the square footage. And again, that's because all these documents, I want to have the landlord sign so that they're ready to go when the tenant comes along. And then the next is going to be your agency disclosure, the 82, which is for the tenant, the lease agreement, your rental applications, 1 or 2 of them in there is fine. And then you're also going to have your PHSA, which is the pool, hot tub, and spa addendum, your pet addendum, your move-in, move-out form. And then the last one there is the LPI landlord lease breakdown. And that's the breakdown we're going to use when it's time for you to get paid. So now that we have all of these forms in the list, we're going to click Save Template over here in the bottom right-hand corner. And now that template has been saved, and you can see everything that's in the template. It has one more form than my other template because this one only had one of the applications in it, the applications to rent. So this is now created, and I'm free to use it. The way you use it, though, is not by clicking it and opening it. If you do that, all you're going to do is go in and edit the template. So what I'm going to have you do is go back to this page. We're still in Skyslope Forms, and you can either click here up at the top left-hand corner on Forms, or you can click on Files. Either one is fine. I'll click on Forms, and you'll see it's going to take us back to the same place. It's the home page for Skyslope Forms. So now what I'm going to do, if I need to create a lease listing, I'm going to click Create New File, and I'm not in templates anymore. Now I'm in Files. So I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to select that I'm representing a landlord. This landlord's name is going to be Joe Smith, and his email is going to be joe@joemama.com, and his street address is 123 Foothill Boulevard. And when it comes to naming the files, I like when I'm representing a landlord or a seller, I like to name the file the property address. When I'm representing a buyer, I generally use the name of the client so that it doesn't matter which property we're referring to. So for this one is a lease, I'm going to go ahead and leave it the file name where I'm representing the landlord. And then it's going to allow me to select which templates I want to use. One thing I want you to be careful of is sometimes when you're looking at the screen, you're just going to see, looks like you're done and there's not much more to do. Make sure you scroll all the way down so you can see I'm going to apply the template we just created, which is lease 2. And it just automatically pulled all those forms in for me. Now I'm free to go in and edit the forms. My information should be in all of them because I entered this in the profile section that we talked about at the very beginning. And then you'll be able to go in and put your information in, fill out the forms as you want to. And I'm going to exit here. And you'll notice when I go in and make edits to forms, let me go back in here real quick, and I'm just going to I'll make a change to this. We'll call it, let's just say I spelled it wrong and I want to call it desert lifestyle. So I'm going to click save, and you see up here at the top, it says all changes saved. Those changes automatically get saved anytime you make a change to the file. You don't have to hit save. There I do, but here I don't need to make that. I don't need to make that change. Hold on one second. I can't see what I'm trying to do here. There we go. I need to put a space in there. All right. So once that's done, it's automatically saved up here. And as long as you see that, you don't have to worry about it. So now you see down at the bottom, it says save template, save as template, save and exit, prepare signature. I don't want to save this as a new template. I don't really need to worry about saving the envelope that I'm working in right now. And I don't need to prepare signatures. So I'm actually going to go back up here to the top, and I'm going to click on the property address in this back arrow. And I'm just going to click exit. I don't need to save my changes. It's already saved the changes to the document. What I'm saying no to there is saving changes to the envelope that I was working in. That might be a little confusing, but to be honest, you can't mess it up. You might create some extra envelopes if you click save, but it won't hurt you and it won't change anything in the long run. So now you'll be able to go through, complete the documents that you want to complete, put in the date prepared. One thing I'll share with you as you're going through, if I were creating this now, and putting the information in, the date prepared is the date that you type the contract. And then the beginning date is the date they're going to sign. And so we want those dates to be as close together as possible. They should be the same at any time. You can make them the same. Let's just say that the landlord says, you know what, I'm going to sign today, but I don't want the listing to start for 2 weeks. Don't make the 2-week extension start here. The problem with this is if we have this prepared date of 11/3 and the beginning date of 11/17, and they sign it and you take it back and you're doing all your things to get ready for the listing, the problem with that is that you don't if someone were to come along on 11/4 and offer them a contract, you wouldn't be owed a commission. And so to protect yourself, make sure that this date stays the same as the date prepared, and that's all the date that they're signing. And create an SELM, a seller exclusion from the listing or the multiple listing service, so that we're able to remove that. In the purchase agreement or in the listing agreement, the SELM is built in. In the lease listing agreement, the SELM is not built in. So you can still use the separate SELM form in order to exclude this listing for the multiple listing service for that 2-week period or however long they want to hold it off of the MLS before they're ready. Just make sure, again, these dates are the same so you protect yourself. Everything else here is pretty self-explanatory. The type of tenancy that we're going to do is generally not going to be month to month. The reason for that is that we're paid for the term of the contract. So if the term is 12 months, we get paid for the term, for the percentage that we're collecting off of 12 months. If the contract that we write is for 24 months or 36 months, then it's generally for that term. So that's why we're generally either doing 1 year, or we can check the box and we can do seasonal or short term if short term is allowed in that particular neighborhood. So if you're going to be doing those, this is how I would fill this particular piece out. If there's anything that's included or excluded, it gets written in here, any additional terms. For leases, in most cases, in my template, I'm going to go ahead and put in 20%, because Short-term and seasonal leases are generally the standard commission is 20% and we share out 10%. So where you indicate that on this contract is by putting the 10% here. And if you read, it says the broker is authorized to cooperate with and compensate brokers participating through the MLS by offering MLS brokers out of their compensation 10%. The one thing I want to be very careful about is that I have seen agents put 10% here and 10% here. And that does not mean that you get 10% and 10%. What that means is you're collecting 10% and you're giving away 10%. And that leaves you with nothing. And I have seen agents do that before, unfortunately, so just be aware of that. The other thing to remember is that for seasonal and short term, it's 20%. For long term, which is generally 1 year or more, can be 6 months, but for 1 year or more, it's generally 10%, and then you share out 5. So this would read 10 up here, and it would read 5 down here. The only other place that I generally tend to put something in on this first page is in this section A, B. I put in 180 days, and let's just real quick read this. If the owner within 180 calendar days after the end of the listing period or any extension enters into a contract to transfer, lease, or rent the premises to anyone or that person's related entity who physically entered or was shown the premises during the listing period, or by any cooperating broker who submitted to the owner a signed written offer. And basically what this is saying is that you have the right to collect a commission if the property is leased or sold. And hear that again, if the property is leased or sold to someone that was shown the property during the time you rented. So be aware of that and fill in, give yourself 180 days after the expiration of this. The other thing you need to remember is that this is not valid unless you complete item C, which says if without the broker's prior written consent, oh, wait a minute, hold on one second. I don't think that's the right section. It is here. Okay, so the owner, it's actually in section B. So the owner, however, shall have no obligation to the broker under this paragraph 3AB unless no later than the end of the listing period or any extension or cancellation, the broker has given the owner a written notice of names of such prospective transferees. So understand that by the expiration of this listing, you need to give a list of names to that landlord so they have a list of exclusions. And the reason for that is that if they list with someone else, they should hand that list of exclusions to the new agent. And that is actually what this section down here is talking about. It talks about if you have any obligations to pay anyone else, anyone else who has listed the property. That's item G1. Owner warrants that the owner has no obligation to pay compensation to any broker regarding the lease or rental of the premises unless it's rented to. And so that's where that list of of exclusions would come into play. And as a lease listing agent, it's also something you need to be asking the landlord when you're meeting with them. Is there anyone else that you've been obligated to pay? And is there an exclusion list from your last listing agent if they had one? So those are good questions to ask and things that you can fill in. If you're gonna be filling this out, definitely reach out and have a conversation with me. I'm happy to go through it with you and just put some eyes on it. But a couple other things to know about: if you're using a key safe or a lockbox, that's important. If the property was built before 1978, then you're going to need to check the box and provide the proper documentation. This is a great time for you to sit down and have conversations with the landlord about lead-based paint, pools, spas, mold, asbestos, pest control, anything that you know that they know of that they can pass along, and go through each of these sections with the landlord to make sure that the questions are filled out properly. A lot of times you're going to take this with you blank to the listing agreement, to the listing appointment, and you'll be able to fill most of these items out as you get there. But if you're not and you're able to just have a good conversation with the seller and get that information, that's also fine. This section here is where you would put if there's going to be any changes to compensation or anything additional like that. And for the most part, I think that's it. Then you've got your signature lines and you have your fair housing advisory, and I believe the bed bug is on the other one. Okay, so that's it. So this, you can see up at the top, all of our changes have been saved. We don't need to save as a template. We don't need to save and exit. We're going to go back up here again. And we can go through each of these documents. I'm not going to go through each of them with you now because other than the lease listing that we went over, I think most of them are pretty self-explanatory. One thing that I do like to do is pull up the lease agreement. Now, I don't have a tenant yet, but what I like to do is fill this out with the landlord or fill it out and send it to the landlord and let them review it. You'll notice a lot of times when you're representing a buyer or a tenant, you'll call the lease listing agent and they will say, don't worry, I'll do the paperwork. I already have the contract. The reason for that is in most cases, they've already reviewed all the terms with the landlord. They know what they want and they pretty much have it already written out. So you have the opportunity to do this too. It might be a good idea for you when you're sending over the lease paperwork to just draft this and download it and send it along as an attachment. They don't need to sign it, but even you could put an initial on it so that they're able to just take a look at it and let you know if there's any changes that they want to have made to it. And we can go through filling all of this out and making sure that you have the information that you need to go in here, but I'll do that in a different session. We'll go back now and look at all of our documents, but from here, you would just go in, select the documents that you want once they're filled out. You select everything that you're going to need to send to the landlord. And we don't need that AD. And this is it. So these documents are what we would need. So we're going to click fill and send. And now it's going to allow us to go through and enter all of the information that we want to enter. The agency disclosure is pretty much filled out. On this one, I'll go ahead and put in that we're going to do, let's just say we're going to go until January of, or let's see, November of 20, end of November of 2023 is going to be our lease term, our lease listing term. This is where I'll put in my rent amount. So let's just say it's $2,500 per month. And then the security deposit is going to be $2,500. It's a 1-year lease, so we'll leave it in that we may do seasonal if somebody wanted it. Anything that's included or excluded goes in there. We'll leave all that blank for now. I shared with you what I would put in here. And I think the next place, if there's anything obviously to check in this section, then we're going to go ahead and check it. But the next place where I just have a couple little tips for you on things you should enter would be, actually, no, I think we're good there. That's pretty much it for the lease listing. We're going to scroll down through the rest of this document. We're at the carbon monoxide detector notice. There's nothing for you to fill out here. The lead-based paint notice. Now, if we don't need this, we didn't have to check it. But if we don't need this, if it's not pre-1978, you didn't need to check it in the first place. But you would go through here and fill out anything that the landlord knows. And if you don't have that, that's okay. You can make it a fillable section for them. The lease rental mold ventilation addendum is here. This is pretty much all as it needs to be. We don't have the tenant information yet, but that's okay. We're just sending it to the landlord to go ahead and sign. And then these last few here, you've got your square footage and your CDAR disclosure. And I think that's it. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click prepare signature. And it's got the landlord and it's got the seller's agent name. I'm going to put that I need to sign it. We'll click next. And now you have all of the document prepared for signature. And you can see DigiSign automatically puts the signature fields in. It's here on all the signature fields everywhere you need. Just go through them to double check and make sure everything looks good, and it does. Yep, that all looks good. And then as we go through, the one thing we need to do is enter a address. So I'm going to do a text field right here. And the text, I'm going to come over here and enter the text. So I'm going to put our property addresses on 1234 Foothill, I think is what it was, in Laverne. And I don't remember what that zip code was, but we're just going to make it a Laverne, PA 92285. I don't know what it was, but we're just going to make it that. And then what I'm going to do is copy this. And then I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to come here and I'm going to paste. Oops, excuse me. Yep, there it is. Paste. And then I'm just going to move that signature line here again. So I come here and I click paste and it pastes it. And then it's in each signature line exactly where I want it. So you have to play around with that a little bit. It took me a minute to get comfortable using it. You can either do Control C, Control V, which is Control Copy, Control Paste, or you can use the little copy and paste features over here and play around with them a little bit. It was a little weird for me at first, but once you get used to using them, it's pretty simple. And we can even plug signature lines in here. So if we want to have the landlord is going to sign here, and we can put his full name right here. And the date will go here. And you're able to plug that in anywhere else that you need to. I think that was the only one that wasn't automatically plugged in. Nope, we'll go ahead and put the landlord here. And the date. And we're also going to put my signature there as the agent. Oops, that was the date that we changed. Make that the agent, and then we're going to click here. And now you'll see it's green. That's Joe Smith. We want to change that to the agent signature. And now we can click date and plunk a little date box down there. And let's see if there was anywhere else. One more. That's going to be the tenant signature. So we don't need that for the landlord, but that's okay. Even though we wrap this in, because the landlord's not going to sign it, I'm not going to put a signature block there for him. It's okay. We're just going to go ahead and leave it in. You can take it out if you want, but you don't necessarily have to. So from here, I'm at the bottom right-hand corner. I'm going to click send. It's going to let me say, please sign documents for 1234 Foothill. And then I'm able to put in my subject or my message, which is please call me with any questions. And you can put in whatever information you want. And then I click send for signatures. And now it sends it off to all of us for signature. So I'll go into my, let's see if I can do a new share to my email inbox. Oh, do I have it open? Yeah, we'll go there. And I will show you when the email comes in. That one will go to this one. So our email is here, and I'm going to click on it, and I will agree. I'm going to click start, and it's going to let me just start clicking and signing. It's going to ask me which signature type I want to use. And then I'm able to go through it pretty fast. I know this happens a lot and people get a little confused, especially clients who are like, I didn't get to read it. They're able to stop at any time and they can scroll through the documents. They just don't need to keep clicking next until they get to the point where they're ready to do that. And then once I'm done, I click finish signing and it's all set. There's a couple more steps that can happen in there. So if you ever have any challenges, don't hesitate to reach out. But I think this is a pretty foolproof way for you to create your own templates and then go ahead and apply them to a transaction, and some little tips that we were able to give you just to be able to help you get through that quickly. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.